Good evening, everyone. It's me again, Ken Robinson, down here after work here at Lake Decatur by the boat docks, where I usually come a couple of nights a week just to hang out and put thoughts together and think about my life and how it was lived. Going back years ago in Decatur, as a kid, we used to do some crazy things. Our grandmother lived in Harristown, and myself, my brother Steve, my three cousins, Mark, Mitchell, and Stuart, we used to get on our bicycles and ride to Harristown a couple of times a week, and to leave either on South Webster Street or on Gulf Street, where my cousin lived at. Again, we would ride bicycles to Harristown, Illinois, and to think about it now, we were some crazy guys back in the day. It wasn't nothing that we wouldn't try to do. Harristown, from those two addresses, is about a 20-mile drive, at least. We leave about maybe, say, 10 in the morning. Take us about maybe, I'm going to say 2 hours just to ride out there and spend the whole day with Grandma Minnie and Mr. Merle on the farm. The old saying was back then, be home before dark, or before the street lights came on. That we did. Our parents didn't have a clue where we went until we got back. But back in the day, that's how all the kids did it. We had fun. We hung out together. We traveled together. And man, we got stories after stories of things and people. And, over by Mark's house, there was a soybean mill. And we used to go up there at 10, 11 years old, climb 20 and 30 feet buildings, which were like maybe 10 to 15 floors high, and then get on top of the buildings and look over Decatur. One year we had a cat that we put in a gunny sack, went on top of the soybean factory, looked over the ledge, and we threw this bag, or this cat in this gunny sack bag, off. And to our amaze, the bag started moving and the cat started running in the bag. Wow. That was a long way. And when they say that a cat has 9 lives, believe it. 9 lives is what the cat had. Mind you, we're up here on this building at 10, 11 years old. And now when I go down Decatur Street or South Franklin Street by PT's Barbecue and look up in the air, there's that soybean mill. Big old yellow building that we used to go up. No lights. All these floors. You go up one floor. You walk across the floor. Go up a ladder. Come back to the other side of the floor. Go up a ladder. And we did that for like, gosh, 15, 16 floors to the top of this building. And in this building were like big ass rats, pigeons, and it was dark, and all we had to do or could do was get on the floor, and we would see just a little bit of light and find the other stairs, and then go up the stairs again, walk across the floor, find the other ladder, go up the stairs until we reached the top. We were crazy kids back then. I mean, to go up there on that building, and I think one time we even stood on top of that ledge. Mom and Gladys, they would have had a fit if they knew what we did back in that time. But back then, we were kids, and we ventured out, and we had a lot of fun together. There was a time to where I can remember going down to the lake. There was a big trestle that would have crossed Lake Decatur, and we used to get on that trestle and wait till a train started coming, and then we would outrun the train at the age of 9 and 10 years old. The things that we used to do as kids. Can't believe it. But we lived a good life, had fun. I'm thinking about the things now that we did, and I'd be saying to myself, man, Kenny, what in the world were you guys thinking? And the last story is when we lived on 833 South Webster back in this, we moved here in 1959. I was 10. And in our backyard there was a trap door that would go underground, and we found these rooms, beer bottles, several rooms, and all the guys like, oh man, Renard Wilson, Howard Wilson, me, Skip, Stevie, my older brother, we would walk in these rooms and there were shelves of beer bottles that were full of beer. And we would have a contest, and we would throw these beer bottles across the floors, which were brick floors, to see which bottle can make the loudest noise. We did this for 4 or 5 summers. Go down, hide out, play. And to come to find out, as I got older, actually grown, there was a distillery which was called the Decatur Distillery, which was back in the 1880s, 1890s, that manufactured beer, alcohol, which ended up being on the corner of East Cantrell and South Broadway Street on the square. And I have pictures of that corner back in 1901, 1890 that showed the buildings. And when Cantrell Street and at the time Broadway Street were dirt roads, and there were oxen pulling carts up and down the road. On one side was the distillery, and the other side is where they show guys that were packing round barrels and putting these barrels on a cart to go up and down Broadway Street. I got pictures. And come to find out, until 1905, they brought in a preacher named Billy Sunday, and he did a revival, and the whole city of Decatur went dry. The wife protested that the husbands were coming home at night, fighting them, and beating them up and everything there. And then this guy did a revival, and the whole city became dry. And the Decatur distillery had to close. So they sold out to Pilsners in Peoria. Later, Pilsners sold out to Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis, where it all started in Decatur, Illinois, back in 1888. Right here on that corner. And also, the house that we lived in at 833 South Webster was like a mansion. And we used to always question the quality of that house. That house was the only house on that block that had 2 fireplaces made out of marble, had a winding staircase off the living room, mahogany, and come to find out in my research of Decatur, I found a 1909 Decatur directory, and back in that time they would list your address, and they would list the person that lived in the house. It would give his name, the wife's name, where they worked at in one section. Okay, one section was your address, who lived in the house. The other section of the book, from A to Z, was the person's name and their job titles. So I looked up 833 South Webster in 1909, and it gave the person's name that lived in that house, our house, in 1909. Come to find out that he was the head viewmaster of the Decatur Distillery, which was a block from our house, Cannon Corner, on the corner of Cantrell Street and South Broadway. So the viewmaster was the person that overseen the production of the alcohol in the distillery, or so-called the factory. And that tunnel that we used to play in underground was a tunnel that led to the distillery. And when they went dry in 1905, 06, they were making alcohol bootlegging up underground. So they kept it going the production of the alcohol. So when Dad bought that building there, Robertson Barbershop building on the corner of Cantrell and Broadway Street, he had a garden there every year for over 30 years, a garden. And Mr. Kenny Bowers would always come every summer and plow the garden. Every year there was beer bottles, there were bricks up under the ground that he plowed. And Dad would always say, where in the world did all these bottles come from? And these bricks in the garden. Come to find out, on that corner was the distillery of the Decatur Brewery that produced the bottles for the alcohol. So we were playing in a cellar underground that was part of the Decatur distillery that started in 1888. The history of all that we played underground, not knowing what we were doing, throwing all these bottles with labels on it and stuff, and just cases and cases of beer bottles. And I'm sure that there is a way that you can go back under the ground there on that corner and find those cellars. The owner of McGorry's Bar and Grill years ago, Charlie McGorry, and I became good friends. And he would tell me a story of his great-great-grandfather that owned the Decatur distillery back in the 1880s, 1890s. And I was telling Charlie that, man, we used to go underground on that corner, and there were rooms, cold rooms, they were definitely cold, beer bottles in cases that we used to just throw across the rooms to see which one could have or make the loudest noise with these bottles. Did it for years. And I'm telling Charlie, like, man, we could probably go back there and we could, I don't know, probably find some trap doors or find out the location through the city in terms of how to get under there to see if those rooms were still there. By the way, so back in 71, they had an urban and renewal to come through there and tore down some houses, and all the houses on the end of Cantrell and MOK Drive, about 8 of them that were built in the 71 area, which was that same corner where the distillery was. I have pictures of that corner when the distillery were like, gosh, man, smokestacks, brick buildings. Well, they're all tore down now. But those were the buildings that produced alcohol in Decatur until they brought in this preacher. I got pictures of that too. Like he's doing revivals wearing a white suit at Fairview Park. And people were there by the hundreds. And when he finished his revival, the city voted to make Decatur dry to the point to where the Decatur distillery had to go out of business and sell their company to Pilsner's in Peoria. And then through the years, Pilsner sold their operations to Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis. and Anheuser-Busch. Got its start in Decatur, Illinois, on the corner of East Central Street and South Broadway Street in Decatur, Illinois. That's some history, folks. I lived through it, not knowing what I lived through, but when I tell the story today, I told the story to my dad after we were grown, what we used to do in the backyard and go underground to these tunnels, and he had a fit. He said, suppose those tunnels had caved in on you. We would never found you. But hey, we were some crazy kids back in that day. So I'm just, reminiscing the things that we used to do, and I had to tell this story, how we lived back in the 60s in Decatur, Illinois. So I'm going to put this story on Facebook, and I'm going to see the response that I get to it. Hey, it's fun. Hey, I'm 77 years old. I've lived a good life. And each day that I'm blessed to be here, I'm going to tell a story of how I lived. And to God be the glory. Until next time, take care and have a good day. Thank you. God bless.